The purpose of the Greenland trip was to explore a very remote area in the Arctic Circle with lots of opportunity to climb previously unclimbed peaks. That was the purpose of the group of 5 of us going out. So we were in the middle of doing that, and with a lot of snow on the ground in winter conditions, our main method of travelling around the glacier was on skis, and that constant friction on the feet and the skis created bad blisters in my feet. And if you've ever been walking or hiking or skiing, you'll know that a blister that forms, you have to either stop doing it or treat it immediately. Well, in our situation, that friction, my feet just got worse and worse because you had to keep going each day. We were doing a lot of skinning, so blisters just got worse and worse, and after a number of heavy days, the blisters just got unbearable. So I'd rest one day and then hope that it would heal somewhat, that I could go back skiing, but I knew that was pretty futile exercise, so they got worse and worse, and got to the stage midway during the trip that I couldn't walk on them, couldn't bear weight on them, and to avoid any other issues with the group in terms of having to deal with someone who couldn't move, the best decision for me was to see if I could get evacuated. From speaking to the insurance company, the procedure was that I needed to engage with emergency services to arrange an evacuation. So I tried to do that with the satellite phone that we had, but it wouldn't work for emergency services numbers, so the only option I could think of was ring home and get emergency services engaged through that avenue. So that's basically how it started.
Late evening we got this call from Ron saying that he's in a bit of trouble, that his feet are badly infected and he can't make contact with the people who may be able to help to get out of there, and could we do something for him? So we got this piece of instructions from Rowan that in the event of anything happening, these are the following numbers with all the different contact names, and having tried numerous times to go through them all, we were getting nowhere. Frustration, if you like, and a degree of anxiety crept into it, and I thought, well, what am I to do here? He can't make contact. I'm not getting anywhere with it, so let's try the emergency service. I think the gentleman's name was Will, and Will started to talk to me in quite a calm manner, saying, got me to explain the trip, who organised the trip, when did it happen, what was wrong with my son, who have I tried to contact, did I have coordinates? And he calmly said to me, look, give me your name and telephone number, I'll try and do something and I'll come back to you in 5 or 10 minutes.
This man was very distressed, very distraught over his injured son, who was only 5 days or so into this expedition. He had suffered severe foot injuries, possibly even frostbite, I'm not too sure at that time what was actually wrong. But that he had decreased mobility, he couldn't weight bear, he couldn't walk, and temperatures were down to -20. Initially it did kind of throw me as to what we could do for this man, and ultimately do for his son who was in Greenland. But having gathered the pertinent information that we needed to process the call as to where he was and what form of communications we had with him and phone numbers, etc., I promised the caller, who was the patient's father, that I would get back to him in some way, shape or form with something. Even if it was to say no, that we couldn't do anything, I wanted to be that person that told him. And I thought, well, if this was an injured climber here in Ireland, on any of the various mountain ranges that we have, we'd initially be looking to the likes of the Coast Guard or mountain rescue teams for help, and we'd be passing the call over to them until such time as they rescued the patient and brought them down, and if they needed further medical treatment, that we would then provide an ambulance to transport them to hospital. So I initially thought, well, I know we have directories of ambulance services in the rest of Ireland and in the UK that we are in frequent contact with, but surely the likes of the Coast Guard in Ireland must have an international directory of their fellow colleagues in other countries. So I placed a call to the Coast Guard Coordination Centre, the Maritime Rescue Coordination Centre in Leeson Lane in Dublin. I finished shift at 11 o'clock. I was on my way home. I was collected by my wife because she was in town doing or band rehearsal. And on the way home, about 20 past 11 or so, I got a phone call from the controller from the Coast Guard to say that they had been in contact with their international colleagues and that a rescue plan was being put in effect. I rang him back straight away. I had his number, I kept his number. And what I got over the phone from him was that there was an immense sense of relief. You know, it was as though a great weight had been lifted off his shoulder. You know, here he was, like any parent, concerned about their child. It didn't matter that this happened to be a man in his, I think, late 20s, early 30s. He was still his son. And as any parent would do, they have concern for their children.
I wasn't aware of what had been going on back here, and that Will had been engaged in HSE and was managing things. So I think I had rang later that night trying to find out what was going on, but I either didn't get through or I wasn't sure what was happening. And then the next morning I made a call again to home, and the understanding was, yes, it's been arranged and the Coast Guard are looking after it, and are in touch with Greenland or Denmark Coast Guard. And within, I think, 15 minutes to a half an hour, helicopter came up to the body. So.
Next thing I heard, Rowan was being collected, being airlifted, got the medical treatment, and the day after he was on a plane home.
This was one of those occasions where it was something different. There was something. What's the word I'm looking for? Extraordinary. It wasn't a usual run-of-the-mill call. Okay, it certainly drew upon. It certainly stopped and made me think. And as I say, it was an extraordinary call. It just goes to show that you just don't know what you're going to be faced with next.